What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kemple with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. I have a very dynamic, successful guest. He has done a lot of things in his career and is now an entrepreneur. He is an author. He's a former president of UPS. Please welcome Rocky Romanella. Thank you, Rocky, for being here. Can you please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the show. And as you said, Rocky Romanella, and had a 36-year career at UPS. I actually started unloading trailers. So here's the math some of your audience can do. So June 15th, 1976. Started
Wow.
unloading trailers at UPS. I was working my way through college, and I actually went to school to be a high school history teacher and a baseball coach. And what I realized is that the best leaders and those people that really were successful were able to teach and train their people. And so I never gave up my coaching, teaching passion. I just did it in a different venue, which was a business setting. And UPS had a promotion from within policy. So I was a UPS driver. I loved that job. I learned so much from that job. And then my dad, rest his soul, told me two things before I started at UPS. He said, "Hey, whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you, and then learn your job and learn some more." So as I was taking advantage of the UPS promotion from within policy, there were times when they would tap me on the shoulder, and I moved 9 times across the country. My first move was actually Chicago. And I would look at them and say, "You got to have somebody smarter than me to do this. Are you sure I'm the right person for this?" And all I could hear my dad on my over my shoulder say, "Hey, just say yes and thank you and do what they ask you to do." So I took some moves along the way. And the thing that I think I learned from that moment was there are times when you have to believe in your people until they're ready to believe in themselves. They may not be ready from a confidence or experience point of view, but you know they have that ability to do more things, and so you believe in them until they're ready to believe in themselves. And then when they get to that kind of break even point, and then you step back and you let them fly. And so just quickly to wrap up the UPS career, I had the opportunity to do some really interesting things inside UPS. We purchased mailboxes, et cetera, and then rebranded that to the UPS store. And I had that as a direct report and got the opportunity to work with just some wonderful, wonderful entrepreneurs. It's a 100% franchisee owned network. And I have so much respect for an entrepreneur after watching them and working with them. And no one's more all in than an entrepreneur, that's for sure. And then we purchased over 20 companies and built what's today UPS Supply Chain Solutions, and had the opportunity to run this side of the world for UPS on the supply chain side, and got us into such things as healthcare, which today I really kind of sit back and I'm so proud of UPS and even FedEx and the transportation companies are delivering the vaccine. But I think back to those early days of our healthcare time at supply chain. Retired at 55, 36 years, and was recruited to be a CEO of a telecom company. We built cell towers, upgraded cell towers. We had a sale there. And then my wife said to me, "I don't know what you're doing, but you're not following me around the food store, so go find something else to do." So I started, so I started my own business here, 360 Management Services. We do keynote speaking, which I predominantly do, leadership training, and some consulting. So Deb said, "Hey, you're not following me around, so just go figure out something to do." So that's what I'm doing now.
And you have written a book called Tighten Your Lug Nuts.
Yes, yes. Tighten the lug nuts, the principles of balanced leadership. It's sort of that journey through my over 40-year business career. And actually it's written in a third person because one of the things early on in my career, I never liked that feeling like the other would say, "Hey, I've got this new idea." And I would say, "Well, that's a good idea, but what if?" And the
Right,
but what if always kind of changed your look, like, "Oh, maybe he doesn't think it's a good idea, maybe he doesn't think I did my homework." And that was never my intention.
right.
My intention was always to challenge you in a positive way, not to stop at the first right answer or maybe look past that first right answer, but never challenge you because I didn't think your idea was a good idea. And so it became easier for me to say, "Hey, you think Joe Scafone thinks that's a good idea?" And we would laugh. And so Joe Scafone became that character who I could challenge you in a positive way. And so the book is written as Joe Scafone.
I like it. So I have a lot of questions.
Go ahead.
Actually, a lot of something. So your journey through UPS, I feel like that is very rare now these days in the corporate setting. You have to really kind of work extremely hard to go start from the bottom to get to the top. And so I think maybe like along your path in your career and in that time, it may, I don't know, do you think it was a little bit easier than it is now and they gave more people chances from within? Because I don't feel like that is common anymore in the corporate world.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that whole concept of promotion from within and not hiring from the outside. I think that that had to change a little bit because in order for you to get the, have a diverse workforce, then I think what has to happen is that you have to hire, a diverse workforce. And if you haven't done that, then a way to, excuse me, begin that process is to hire from the outside. So I think it's a little bit of that. I also think that one of the things that companies need to do a better job at working at is what's your values and what's your culture. So as I was saying, I think it's a little bit of both. And I think, as you start to look at your workforce and really work on the diversity of your workforce, because diversity is so important, not only in culture and in African American, female, Hispanic, Native Americans. At the end of the day, the diversity also gives you a diverse way of thinking, a diverse thought process, which is excellent. So if you haven't had that and you hadn't hired a diverse workforce years ago, well, then you're promoting from the workforce you have. So you may have to hire from the outside for the right reasons to do that. So I think that's one reason. I think the second reason is I think at UPS, I didn't agree with everything that happened at UPS. I didn't disagree enough to leave.
Sure.
And I think companies today have to really understand what are your values, who are you, what do you stand for, and what are the things you won't compromise as a company? Because I felt like I fit in at UPS. They never asked me to violate a policy, do anything illegal. I felt like they recognized hard work, so I felt like I fit in. And I would say companies today need to take an inventory of who they are and what they stand for because their workforce is going to want to understand that, and then that
Right.
allows them to understand, do I fit here? It's kind of like when you take your kids to college and they walk around college and they're looking around and you can see when they feel like they fit at a college.
Yeah.
It may not even be the college they thought they were going to go to, but they walked that campus and they said, I feel like I belong here. And I think that companies really, if they want to have longevity in their workforce, if they want that kind of loyalty, well, it's a two-way street. And I think it starts with them understanding who they are and do our people feel like they fit in here. So I think that's probably the second reason why it's so difficult is that I think companies got to do a better job articulating who we are, what we stand for, what are our culture, what are our values, and what are the things we won't compromise.
I think that's some really solid advice. Personally, I don't like working in corporate. I if I don't agree with something, I let them know, and I'm not someone that's going to sit there and just shake my head and say yes. I will question things if I don't agree. So I mean, I've been a serial entrepreneur from the age of like 13. I was cutting grass, babysitting. I did put flyers out within a 2 mile radius of my mom's house. I mean, I was like hustling at 13 years old. I mean, before that, I was washing my grandparents' floor when I was 8 at their printing shop. So, I understand hard work and I understand like, the value of a dollar. And after I got out of, school, I started my own event planning business. And then I met my husband and we had 5 businesses together. When he passed away, almost lost everything because of just, all the craziness of the family and all that. But, I'm a serial entrepreneur. We had our one business, like I was telling you about, we did some work. Our transmissions went into UPS vehicles. We did 20 million, a year. It was just us, we were the ones growing the company. We had 150 employees, and so then after he passed, getting into the corporate world was a shock for me because I had honestly never really worked for anyone.
No, no, that's a great point. That's a great point. But you should be, if you really think about it, if companies really do it the right way, they should want you there, right? Because you're the type of person that helps, kind of press them a little bit further. The way as leaders, we should be trying to help our people not stop at the first right answer and look past that first right answer because they may get a better, deeper answer. Well,
Sure.
our people challenge us to do that in a positive way as well, right? And so I think the problem, I get asked the question quite often, what about today's generation? And and that to me is all crazy talk because if you think about it, when I started work at UPS in June of '76, I couldn't, I had a beard and a ponytail. I could tell you every word to Stairway to Heaven. I don't think anybody thought I was going to be anything. Right,
I
so
love
every
that.
generation, right? Think about it. So, like,
Yeah.
they're tapping me on the shoulder. I'm like, "Are you sure? I mean, you got like 300,000 people. You don't have anybody better than me to do this? Come on, I'm a little worried here." But you see things in people before they see them in themselves, and that's what makes you the kind of leader who helps promote and develop people. My only point is every generation has has that individual who they say they want to work hard. I think today's generation is very good. I think the difference is they ask good questions, right?
Right.
We didn't like when people asked questions in our generation because we didn't want to challenge anything. Like I said to you, my dad said, "Hey, just keep your mouth shut, work as hard as you can, just say thank you." Okay, well, that's how I was brought up. That doesn't mean it was bad. It's just how it was. Today's generation says, "Hey, you want to move me to Chicago? Why? Is it good for my career? How's that going to help me?" Well, that's not a challenge. It's just a good question.
Right, right. Yeah, I think the fundamentals are the same. It's just the landscape has changed a little bit. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do
I mean,
agree with that. I mean, I know, and so I was a vice president of key accounts and business operations, and I managed like everything, especially when he was sick towards the end. Like you know, and I closed the biggest contract in my career. I got a $20 million contract with the state of South Carolina, so I did very well. And a lot of the people that were under me, I that are incredible leaders now. So I know that I did a good job as a leader creating more leaders, and I'm so proud of a lot of these people that are, that I'm still connected with, to see their success in their career, and they thank me for that. I've got recommendations on my LinkedIn from them, which is just like, oh, thank you.
well, think about it. That's actually your legacy, right? So your legacy is the fact that, that you've had a hand, you've mentored, you've helped, you've helped giving people the confidence they need to move on. And you think about sports, for example, they talk about it all the time they'll talk about it all the time in football that, oh, what's the kind of the coaching tree of Bill Parcells or Steve Walsh or whoever that coach is. And if you think about it, that's what's so important, right? Is that legacy of the people that
Yeah,
you've helped along the way. That's the most important evaluation of
yes.
you as a leader, not the numbers, because what differentiates you is that people are better because of their time with you. You left things a little better than you found them because you left better people, and then they become better, and then they help other people.
I love that. You just gave me the chills. Oh my goodness. Hey guys, Deanna here. I'm taking a quick break to share an exciting opportunity with you. I have recently partnered with Scotsman. They have created a crowdfunding campaign building 3D printed electric scooters that make transportation smart, elegant, and sustainable. It runs on energy efficient batteries that double as USB-C power banks. And they're swappable too, so you can replace your battery and keep your scooter. Check out their crowdfunding page down below. Hurry and sign up now to take advantage of their early bird prices, 50% off. It has a built-in camera, GPS, live maps, and an automatic lock. So hurry up now, get in on this. Go to my special link below, 50% off, and be a part of this really cool campaign. You won't be disappointed. So let's move on from the corporate world. So now you're an entrepreneur. Yeah, your 360 management. So talk to us about that, and how that feels now that you went from corporate world, because I talk to a lot of people that they call it the corporate breakup, where they, breaking up with corporate, and it's a hard transition for them because they've been told and molded in this like uh expectation and this framework for so long that, get breaking out into an entrepreneur is very different for them.
Well, it's interesting. So I would agree. I would say though that the fortunate thing for me, although it didn't feel fortunate at the time, was that I was probably one of the few UPSers who, because of the different things that I was doing inside the non-traditional, we were calling them, I had full P&L responsibility. So, for example, when we purchased mailboxes, et cetera, we purchased a franchisor, and these are all independently owned stores, but that was a complete P&L. Most
Sure.
people inside a company say they have P&L responsibilities, but they really don't, right? It's a
Yeah.
corporate umbrella that they're kind of being managed under. So, between that and the supply chain side of the business, which was a complete P&L, I had a taste of it. But I would never, ever, ever say that I understand completely what it's like to be an entrepreneur like you were with your husband,
Yeah.
or an entrepreneur today starting a business. Because to me, I have the greatest respect for them. Because if you think about it, nobody's more all in than you were
Oh
or an
God, yeah.
entrepreneur was, right? Because you slide everything you own across the table and
Yep.
say, "I'm all in."
Oh
And
yeah.
think about that, right? At the end of the day, you hit the cash register, the drawer opens. You pay your people, you pay your vendors. What's left in the cash register is what you bring home to your family. And in the corporate world, you really don't feel that, right? You can
No.
have a P&L responsibility. Now, I had as far as you can get without me sliding my money across the table. But actually, so I had a sense of it, but not to the degree that an entrepreneur does. And so from that perspective, I have the greatest respect. And I'm not sure I could have done what they did, right? Or what you
Sure.
did,
Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah,
think
you
that
sign
when
your
I
life
look,
away. You
yeah,
sign
no,
your
when I
life
look at,
away, you just hope that you can be profitable every month, day in and
oh my
day out.
God, I mean, and the sleepless nights, how you were, kind of
A lot of red
rotating
wine.
bills,
A
right?
lot of red
Rotating
wine.
bills. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, great respect for the entrepreneurs. Now, it's a little bit different now. I'm a little bit farther along in my career. I
Sure.
retired from UPS with a fortunate, there's still very good pension from those early days. So while, yeah, I'm understanding it. I'm trying to, work through being an entrepreneur. At the end of the day, never to the degree that you were or all those small business owners out there. So from that perspective, I have nothing but admiration and great respect for an entrepreneur.
Well, thank you for saying that, but I have a lot of respect for what you've done because I don't know if I can last that long in corporate. I mean, so I was working until I got let go in December of last year, and I've just really been focusing on my podcast because I absolutely love it to death, and it's just been such an interesting ride. I've just like kind of said in December, I surrender to the universe. I surrender because that's just not working for me. It's just not working for me. So it's been a wild ride and it keeps going and we'll just see where it takes me. I mean, you know, I just maintain my faith.
Well, that's what you have to do because without faith, there's no hope. Without hope, is despair. So you have to maintain a faith in something or
Yes.
something, and then I think that the thing that's what I've really enjoyed is taking the combination of my kind of corporate
Sure.
experiences, taking the experience of actually being the CEO, and then taking the experiences that I learned from all the wonderful entrepreneurs I worked with at the UPS store network. And now our consulting business is mostly small businesses because we love working with them. We
Yeah.
love trying to help them as best we can because in a small business environment, it's not like when you're in a corporation and one of the big consulting companies come in, like they park themselves there for months at a time.
Yeah.
Small businesses don't have that time. It's we got to get in, get out, make some things happen. We don't have a year to think about things, right?
No,
So I think
definitely not.
that, yeah, I love working with small businesses. And it's interesting. I mean, I think there's things that I learned in a corporate environment that really can help small business. Like for example, one of the things that I think is the greatest lessons I learned is don't allow your strength to become your weakness. So what's the
Yeah.
strength of a small business owner? Nobody knows business better than they do. No
Yeah.
one's more vested than they are. No one cares about the business more than they do. What's their weakness? Nobody knows the business better than they do.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
you have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to hire that first employee. Sometimes I think for a small business owner, that first employee is the biggest decision they make. And then employee number two, and then okay, how do I take that next step? And it's always the incremental moves of growing, right? We're
Yeah.
making money now, we're in a good zone. But if I add that new facility, or if I add that additional person, or if I add a new business line of goods or services or products, now it's an investment. So working with them through all those experiences that I had, I feel like I can make a difference, even though I'm not a pure entrepreneur the way they are.
I think so. Yeah, I agree. I've learned a lot of valuable things in the corporate world in the last couple of years that I did not. A lot of things I learned as an entrepreneur. You learn trial by fire, right? I mean, it's just
Right.
like, and you just hope that you can deflect, and move. And my strength was always being able to make a decision very quickly. And with my late husband, everybody came to me to make a decision. And it was like right, wrong, or indifferent. You got to pull the trigger. You got to make a decision now because that not being able to make a decision can be detrimental to the flow of your business. So, but I've learned a lot. I definitely have learned a lot from the corporate world in the last couple of years that have translated into some of the things that I'm doing now. So I would agree with you there.
Well, I would think too, the key is that, look, I always tell people, "Well, you're going to make mistakes. So make them fast, make them small. Let's move on." But if you never make your biggest mistake is when you never make a decision,
Right.
right? I mean, do nothing is sometimes an option, but rare is it the option every single time. Do nothing. So I think what you have to do is understand you're going to make them, make mistakes, make them small, make them fast, move on.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about your book really quick. So, what made you write this book? Tighten your lug nuts.
Well, it's interesting. So as you and I have talked before, this whole concept of legacy is important to me. And to me, legacy means, do you leave things a little better than you found them, or people better because of their time with you? And certainly when you're working, whether it's in a business setting, in a corporation, or now in our company when it comes to training, and it gives you the opportunity to leave things a little bit better if you can interact and help people. And so for me, the book was an extension of that, right? As I was going out doing the keynote speaking, I'd get asked, "Hey, do you have a book? Do you have something that kind of supports your speaking?" And so I decided, you know what, maybe the book can be a way for me to kind of extend that legacy. My thought was, if I could have a book that people could find educational but also entertaining, then maybe we can create some aha moments. Like you tilt your head after one chapter and say, "Oh, that makes sense. Maybe I can
Yeah,
use that, or maybe that can help me." So it was just a way to continue that kind of legacy of leaving things a little better than I found them.
I love that. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what you're doing now with your business, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's a good feeling when you can see people connect dots, and you feel like, you know what, it made a difference. To the degree, look, every time you do something, you don't have the same effect, but the fact that people feel a little bit better, and they feel like they have a different way of looking at things. They may not choose that ultimately, but it also gives them a chance to think about things differently.
Yeah, no, I love that. Where can people find you? So they want to get your book. Where can they find your book? Where can they find you if they wanted to talk to you about your consulting services for their business? Drop
So
by your
for
links, please.
Yeah, so I'm self-published, so we're on Amazon. They do a great job fulfilling. Also, my website is www.tightentheLugnuts.com. Simple as that. And then we have a business website that Tighten the Lug Nuts will take you to, so you'll be fine there. There's a consulting page. There's also a keynote speaking page. You can see some of my reels from my keynote speaking, and so I think that's probably the easiest way. I answer all the questions that come on to contact me. You can also email me at rockyromanella@gmail.com. So it's fun. I get a lot of emails from people who read the book, and there's each chapter has its own little story. I like to tell things in a story format, and so I always love when people send me an email. Oh, that was my favorite story, or did that really happen? That was pretty funny. So I always like people to tell me their favorite story. So I get a lot of emails on what their favorite story is and what favorite experience is, because it's a 40-year journey,
Sure.
and so there's some fun things that happen along the way.
That's awesome. And I'll definitely put all those links in the description of the episode. Before we start wrapping things up, you had a question here that I read that I really liked, and I want to ask you. Um, okay. What habit or behavior that you have pursued for a few years has most improved your life?
Well, for me, it was interesting. I wish I had figured this out earlier. So I'm giving
Don't
you
we
my,
all?
it's this whole concept of understanding the difference between nice to do things and need to do things. And so I put everything in the need to do things. And so what happens is when you put everything in the need to do things, you're 150 miles an hour with your hair
Yeah,
on fire. But unfortunately, sometimes the things that you're doing that could have been waited because they're nice to do, you may be not going to a little league game or to a cheerleading event, or maybe spending time with someone, or just saying thank you because you're so busy, you may not have the chance to say thank you or have that conversation with somebody. So for me, it's understanding the difference between nice to do and need to do things. And
yeah,
interestingly enough, it's not only has that helped in my personal life, but even in my professional side, right? It helped me through as CEO. Okay, what are the nice to do things? What are the need to do things? And so as people come out of the pandemic and they're trying to get their business restarted or get their professional lives restarted, understanding the difference between nice to do and need to do, because the need to do things you have to do. But
right.
the nice to do things is what it sounds like. We like to do them. They're
Yeah,
nice to do.
yeah,
And so I would say that that is probably, one. And 1A would be, don't let your highs get too high and your lows get too low. So I think what happens is when things are really going well, everybody likes to spike the ball and get all excited and do the happy dance. But unfortunately, the lows are going to be there too, right? It's kind of that evolution. It's the kind of peaks and
yeah,
valleys. And so I think if you can kind of stay as a person in that kind of in that zone of don't let your highs get too high and your lows get too
yeah,
lows, I think it's a great place for you to
yeah.
be.
I think staying stable through all of them, don't. And I agree with that, and that's something I've learned over time that I used to like to ride the wave. Now I don't like to ride the wave because going up too high and then coming down so low is just not a great feeling. if you can just appreciate the high and still kind of stay level, and then when that low comes, it doesn't affect you as much, because I think sometimes people get caught up in that ride. It's like a freaking Ferris wheel, up and down, up and down.
No, no. I mean, look, I mean, no one knows that better than you, right? Think about the high of how the business is doing well, and then the unfortunate, with your husband. I mean, think about that emotional roller coaster. So that takes great character, that takes great faith to do that. And if and I would think there's not many people that could have had that kind of emotional roller coaster. And sitting here talking today, as positive as you are, how you experience your family and how you try new things is just a great testament to who you are and the character of you as an individual.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting journey for sure. You have to decide. You have to decide what kind of person you want to be. You can either get caught up in, this "woe is me" mentality, or you can look at it like you still have a chance to continue to live your life. You're blessed to be healthy and alive, 6 feet above ground. So that's the attitude I'm going to take, and I'm going to try to live my legacy as best as possible. With that being said, Rocky, you've dropped a lot of wisdom, and I think it's so awesome to see you like creating a new legacy for yourself in a lot of ways, with becoming an author and a keynote speaker, and just having your own business. I'm excited to watch your journey unfold. Do you have any last words of wisdom or advice for anyone in the corporate world, not corporate world, you know whatever?
Yeah. So quickly, so I have the great opportunity at times to speak with juniors, seniors in high school, juniors in college, people starting new jobs, and I always tell them this: think of the word you want someone to use to describe you at the end of your career. Think of what that word is. For me, the word was thoughtful. And so if you think about what that word is, then you spend your career without even realizing it, building a mosaic to that word. So for me, thoughtful meant that I look at things from its widest consequences. I think about how my actions affect others. As we make decisions, we make them in light of our customers, people, shareholders, stakeholders. So if you think about that word you want someone to use to describe you at the end of your career, then
Yeah.
that becomes your legacy. That becomes your brand promise. That becomes what people know about you. And when they think of you, it's the brand, it's your brand identity. And I think that's a great way to look at, as you move through your career and then you move through life, what's that word you want someone to use to describe you at the end of your career?
I love that. I've never heard anyone say that, and that's a really great piece of advice, and that makes me think. My wheels are turning now.
Yeah. What do you think your word would be?
Driven.
Okay.
Yeah. I know how to treat people right. Like, I don't. So I left one of my jobs in the last couple of years because of how leadership was just so condescending to everyone. I'm like, this is not right. You do not. You treat people the same. Like, you got to treat them right, because if we're out there in the front lines and working hard, and outside sales getting turned down, and leadership is talking down to us and condescendingly, that's not cool. So that, like that, and I just think that I value people so much that I don't want to treat them badly. That there's never a reason, there's never an excuse to do that.
No, well, if you think about what's your greatest asset in a company, it's your people.
Yeah,
I mean, look, a lot of companies have great new machines, great new facilities, but what differentiates your company from everybody else's company is the people who work inside your company and who represent the brand. Look,
right,
when I think about UPS, UPS isn't, Rocky Romanella or a CEO. No, UPS is that frontline person, that driver, that service provider who interacts with the customer every single day. That's UPS, and that's what makes UPS a great company, because most people know who their driver is
right.
because they have that relationship. So the minute you start to kind of confuse yourself thinking you're the most important person in the organization is the day you start to lose your organization. It's never about you. It's always about your people.
Woo! Amen to that. Rocky, thank you so much for being a guest. You were awesome. I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. I'm excited for you in this next chapter of your life. I'm very interested in getting your book, and taking a look at that and seeing. I'm gonna let you know what story is my favorite too.
Yes, please.
All right, you guys, this is your host, Deanna Kemple with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, follow, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.